At my brother's funeral, I stood alone beside his casket at Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge. I am Robert Chen, 64 years old, and I watched them close the lid on the only family I had left. Thomas was 68 when Parkinson's finally took him. 8 years of trembling hands, shuffling steps, and slowly losing the sharp engineer's mind that had once designed bridges across 3 continents. 8 years where I bathed him, fed him, held him up when his legs gave out. 8 years where his children, Marcus and Victoria, were too busy to visit. The chapel was almost empty. Me, a priest who read from notes because he'd never met Thomas, and 12 elderly friends from Thomas's old chess club, men who remembered him before the disease. I checked my phone out of habit. Nothing from Marcus. Nothing from Victoria. I opened Facebook. There was Marcus, my 40-year-old nephew, posting from some tech conference in San Francisco 3 hours ago. A photo of him on a panel, the caption reading, "Disrupting the Future of FinTech. Grateful for these opportunities." There was Victoria, 38, at her daughter's soccer game in Greenwich, Connecticut, posted 5 hours ago. Being present for what matters. Number mom life. Number blessed. They chose stock portfolios and suburban soccer over their father's goodbye. They thought I was just the unmarried uncle, the retired high school math teacher who had nothing better to do than care for his older brother. They thought Thomas's Parkinson's was my problem, not theirs. They had no idea what was waiting for them in Thomas's study. They had no idea their father had been documenting everything. The next morning, I was in Thomas's kitchen in Back Bay. The brownstone we'd grown up in, the one our parents bought in 1967 for $42,000, now worth $3.2 million, according to Zillow. I'd been living here for 8 years, taking care of Thomas. The kitchen still smelled like the ginger tea I'd made him every morning at 6. Now it just smelled empty. The doorbell rang at 8:47. I knew it would be them. I'd been awake since 4, sitting at the table, Thomas's jade chess set in front of me, the one he taught me to play on when I was 7. I opened the door. Marcus and Victoria stood there in their rental car casual, not morning clothes. Marcus wore a Patagonia vest over a button-down. Victoria had on athleisure, expensive, the kind that cost $200 for pants. She carried a Starbucks cup, venti, and a leather bag that probably cost more than I made in a month teaching calculus. "Uncle Rob," Marcus said, not quite meeting my eyes. He walked past me like he owned the place. His cologne was overwhelming in our small foyer. We brought bagels. He held up a bag from some artisanal place. Victoria kissed my cheek, quick, perfunctory. "How are you holding up?" She didn't wait for an answer. She was already looking around the house, appraising. I could see her doing the math. Crown molding, original hardwood, walk to Boston Common. I sat down at the kitchen table. This was Thomas's house. It should have smelled like his coffee, like the old books he collected, like the liniment I rubbed on his back when the tremors got bad. Now it just smelled like strangers. Marcus took the chair across from me. Victoria perched on the edge of hers, already checking her phone. "Uncle Rob," Marcus started, "we need to talk about Dad's affairs." I just looked at him. At this man who had Thomas's dark eyes but none of his kindness. Marcus had his father's sharp cheekbones, but where Thomas's face had been warm, Marcus's was calculating. I remembered when Marcus was 12, how Thomas had taught him to play chess on this very table. How Thomas had been so proud when Marcus got into MIT. "He's going to build things that matter," Thomas had said. "We're sorry we couldn't make it sooner." Victoria cut in, not sounding sorry at all. My husband had a deposition he couldn't move, and I had Emma's tournament. She made the traveling team. "It's a huge deal." And I was closing a Series B round, Marcus added. 23 million. 3 years of work. You understand, right? Dad would have understood. He was always practical about business. Practical about business. Thomas, who had quit a lucrative consulting job to teach engineering at UMass Boston because he wanted to give back. Thomas, who had volunteered every Saturday at the Boys and Girls Club teaching kids to code. That Thomas. "Of course," I said quietly. "Anyway," Marcus said, pulling out his iPad, "we need to settle the estate. We've already talked to a lawyer." My blood went cold. What lawyer? Dad's estate lawyer. Well, our lawyer now, technically. He swiped his screen. Here's the situation. Dad died intestate. He had no will? I asked. That didn't sound like Thomas. Thomas had been meticulous, organized, even as the Parkinsons progressed. Nothing we could find, Victoria said quickly. Too quickly. Which means under Massachusetts law, his estate gets divided among his legal heirs. That's us, his children. What about me? I asked softly. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Uncle Rob, you're not a legal heir. You're a sibling, not a child. The law is pretty clear. This house, Victoria said, gesturing around, is the primary asset. It's worth, what, $3 million? Maybe more. That's a lot of equity for one person to be sitting on. I live here, I said. I've lived here for 8 years, taking care of your father. Right, Marcus said. And we're grateful for that, really. But Uncle Rob, you're 64. This place is way too big for you. 4 bedrooms, 3 floors. You can barely manage the stairs. I'd run the Boston Marathon when I was 52. I hiked Mount Washington every summer. But Marcus didn't know that. He hadn't bothered to know me at all. We've already contacted a realtor, Victoria said, pulling out a folder. Inside were listings. Condos in Quincy, small places in Malden, cheap places. You could downsize, get something more manageable, and still have money left over. Left over from what? I asked. Well, Marcus shifted. Obviously, we'd need to sell. Split the proceeds. You'd get a portion, of course. For your time, a portion, I repeated. The house is our inheritance, Uncle Rob, Victoria said. Her voice had an edge now. Dad worked his whole life for this. We deserve it. I thought about Thomas at 3 in the morning, when the Parkinsons made his whole body shake and he'd cry from the pain. I thought about changing his sheets when he had accidents. I thought about feeding him when his hands couldn't hold a spoon. I thought about reading to him from his favorite books when his eyes got too blurry to see the pages. 8 years, 2,900 mornings. And these two had visited maybe 15 times total. Your father wanted me to have this house, I said. Marcus's patience snapped. Then where's the will? Where's the paperwork? You can't just claim things, Uncle Rob. This isn't some small-town handshake deal. This is Boston real estate. This is serious money. He leaned forward, and I saw him clearly for the first time. Not my nephew, not Thomas's son, a venture capitalist who saw everything as an asset to be optimized. His father had been reduced to a balance sheet. I need time, I said. We don't have time, Victoria snapped. The estate needs to be settled. The taxes are due. The house needs to be maintained. We can't just wait around while you figure things out. I want you to leave, I said. My voice was steady, calm. I'd learned that from teaching. Never raise your voice. It gives away your power. Uncle Rob, Marcus said, standing. Don't make this difficult. We're trying to be fair here. But if you won't cooperate, we'll have to get the courts involved. We'll petition for control of the estate. We'll get a conservator appointed. We'll prove you're not capable of managing Dad's affairs. Get out of my house. It's not your house, Victoria said coldly. It's ours. And the sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. They left. But I heard Marcus on the phone before he reached his Tesla. He was calling his lawyer, talking about immediate action, eviction, legal challenges. I closed the door and stood in the silence. Then I walked upstairs to Thomas's study, to the locked drawer in his desk, the one he'd made me promise to open only after he was gone. When I'm at peace, he'd whispered 3 weeks before he died, his words slurred from the medication, you go to my desk. Bottom left drawer. The key is behind the photo of us at Fenway. The photo was from 1985. Thomas and me at Game 6 of the World Series. Red Sox versus Mets. We're grinning, young, believing in impossible comebacks. I took it off the wall. The key was taped to the back. The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside was a large manila envelope with my name written in Thomas's handwriting. Even at the end, when his hands shook so badly, he'd written my name clearly. Robert, not Rob. Robert, like our mother used to call me. Inside the envelope were documents. A will, notarized, dated 6 months ago. I read the first page and my vision blurred. I, Thomas Chen, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath my entire estate to my brother, Robert Chen. There were pages of provisions. The house, his retirement accounts, his life insurance, everything. With one exception, a college fund for Victoria's daughter Emma, $25,000. For the granddaughter who still sends me birthday cards, the note said. But there was more. A second envelope, this one sealed. Read this when you're ready. Thomas had written on the outside. I'm sorry, you have to know. I opened it. Inside was a letter, typed, because by 6 months ago Thomas's handwriting was illegible. My dearest Robert, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry. Sorry that you gave up 8 years of your life to care for me. Sorry that you put your own retirement on hold. Sorry that you never complained, not once, even when I know it was hard. But I'm not sorry for what I'm about to tell you. You need to know the truth about Marcus and Victoria. You need to know why I wrote the will the way I did. 3 years ago, when I was first diagnosed, I asked them for help, not money, just time. I asked Marcus if he could come stay with me for a few weeks while I figured out medication and doctor's appointments. He said he couldn't take time off work. Too important. Too busy. I asked Victoria if she could visit on weekends, help me organize the house for accessibility. She said Emma's activities were too demanding. So I hired a caregiver, Patricia. She was kind, professional. I paid her $4,200 a month. After 6 months, Marcus called me. He'd heard about Patricia from Victoria. Dad, he said, you're wasting money on a caregiver. Let Uncle Rob do it. He's retired. He has nothing else going on. Nothing else going on. As if your life, your plans, your freedom meant nothing. I told him no. I told him I wouldn't ask you to give up your life for me. Do you know what he said? Then I guess we'll have to talk about power of attorney. You're not making good financial decisions. He threatened me, Robert. My own son threatened to take away my autonomy because I wouldn't manipulate you into becoming my unpaid caregiver. But then you came anyway. You showed up at my door with a duffel bag and said, I'm staying. No arguments. I cried that night. Not from the Parkinsons. From gratitude. For 8 years, you were there. You bathed me. You cooked for me. You read to me. You held my hand during the seizures. You never once made me feel like a burden. Do you know how many times Marcus visited in those 8 years? 11. I kept track. 11 times in 8 years. Each visit was less than 2 hours. He'd sit awkwardly, check his phone, talk about his work, then leave. He never asked how I was really doing. He never asked what you needed. He never offered to help. Victoria visited 14 times, but half of those were to borrow things. Mom's china, Dad's watch collection, the painting from the living room. For safekeeping, she'd say. I let her take them because I was tired of fighting. But here's what you don't know. 2 years ago, Marcus asked me to sign over the house to him and Victoria. He had papers drawn up, a quitclaim deed. He said it was for estate planning purposes, to avoid probate. He said you'd still be able to live here, he promised. I refused. He got angry, really angry. He said, fine. Then when you die, we'll contest whatever you leave to Rob. We'll tie it up in court for years. We'll make sure he doesn't get anything. I recorded that conversation, Robert. I set up a digital recorder in my desk drawer. I'd been having memory issues and wanted to record my doctor's appointments. But I also caught Marcus. I caught Victoria. I caught every visit where they asked about my assets and my plans, but never asked about my pain levels or my medication or how you were holding up. It's all in the folder in my desk. All the recordings, all the evidence. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you so you'll fight. I know you, little brother. You hate conflict. You'd rather walk away than argue. But this time, you can't. This time, you have to fight. The house is yours. The money is yours. Not because I didn't love Marcus and Victoria, but because they stopped being my children the moment they started seeing me as an asset instead of a father. They stopped being your family the moment they expected you to sacrifice everything while they sacrificed nothing. Use the recordings. Use the will. Get a good lawyer. Sharon Martinez at Martinez and Associates. I already paid her retainer. She has copies of everything. And Robert? Thank you. Thank you for 8 years of dignity. Thank you for making my last years bearable. Thank you for being the only real family I had. Live well, be free. And for God's sake, take that trip to Japan you always wanted. You've earned it. Your brother? Thomas. I sat in his study and cried, not quiet tears. Big, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. The kind of crying I hadn't done since our mother died. I cried for Thomas. I cried for the children he'd raised who'd become strangers. I cried for myself, for 8 years that I'd never get back. But then I wiped my face. I opened the second folder. Inside were USB drives, labeled by date. I plugged the first one into Thomas's computer. The video opened. Thomas, sitting in his wheelchair, in this very study. His voice was weak but clear. The date stamp said July 15th, 2 years ago. This is Thomas Chen, he said to the camera. I'm recording this of my own free will. No one is coercing me. My brother Robert is at the grocery store. He doesn't know I'm doing this. The doorbell rang in the video. Thomas pressed something, and Marcus appeared in the doorway. Hey, Dad. Marcus's voice was cheerful. Got your message. What's up? I wanted to talk about the house, Thomas said. Finally, Marcus sat down. Look, I brought the papers. It's simple. You sign the quitclaim deed. The house transfers to me and Victoria. You retain right of occupancy for your lifetime. When you die, it's already ours. No probate. No mess. And Robert? What about him? Where does he live when I'm gone? Marcus shrugged. He figures it out. Dad. He's living here for free right now. He's getting a pretty sweet deal. Room and board for what? Helping you out a few hours a day? A few hours a day. I'd been there 24/7 for 2 years at that point. Marcus. Robert gave up his apartment to move in here. He gave up his life to take care of me. That was his choice. Look, Dad, I don't mean to be harsh, but Uncle Rob doesn't have a lot going on. No wife, no kids. He's retired. What else was he going to do? He was going to travel. He was going to volunteer. He was going to live. And he still can. After you're gone, he'll have his pension. He'll be fine. But this house is our inheritance. It's what you built for us. I built this house with your mother, Thomas said quietly. I built it to be a home, not an investment property. Times change, Dad. This house is worth millions. You can't just give that away to your brother when you have children. He's taking care of me every single day. So pay him. Give him a stipend, a salary, but don't give him the house. What if I want to? The silence on the video was long. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was different, harder. Then we'll contest it. We'll get lawyers. We'll prove you weren't in your right mind. Parkinson's affects cognition, Dad. Everyone knows that. We'll argue that Rob manipulated you, isolated you from your children, coerced you. You'd do that to your own uncle? I'd do that to protect my inheritance. My children's inheritance. This isn't personal, Dad. It's business. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I think you should leave. Dad, get out of my house. Marcus left. The video continued. Thomas looked at the camera with tears running down his face. This is my son, he whispered. This is what he's become. There were more videos. Victoria asking when Thomas was going to make the smart financial move and sell the house. Marcus suggesting Thomas should stop wasting money on his medications and consider palliative options. Both of them asking repeatedly about bank accounts, investments, life insurance. Not once did either of them ask how he felt. Not once did they ask what they could do to help. Not once did they say, I love you, Dad. I called Sharon Martinez. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Chen, she said. I've been expecting your call. Thomas told me to watch for you. You knew? About everything. The will, the recordings. Thomas was very thorough. He wanted to make sure you were protected. We met the next day, at her office in downtown Crossing. She was exactly what Thomas would have liked. Sharp, no nonsense. A woman in her 50s with gray in her dark hair and eyes that didn't miss anything. The will is ironclad, she said. I wrote it myself. Thomas was evaluated by 2 independent neurologists, both certified he was of sound mind. We have video of him reading and understanding every page. We have witnesses. It's bulletproof. They're going to fight it. Let them. I have 60 hours of recordings of their visits over 8 years. I have bank statements showing you never took a penny from Thomas. I have testimony from Thomas's doctors, his physical therapist, his friends, all saying the same thing. You cared for him with no expectation of payment. You saved him from going into a nursing home, which would have cost at least $120,000 a year. You saved his estate almost $1 million. I didn't do it for money. I know. That's what makes this case so easy. You have clean hands, Mr. Chen. They don't. The letter from Marcus's lawyer came 3 days later. They were contesting the will, claiming Thomas had been mentally incompetent, claiming I had manipulated a sick old man, claiming undue influence. Sharon filed our response. She included transcripts of the recordings, selected excerpts, Marcus threatening his father, Victoria asking about money, both of them dismissing Thomas's wishes. Marcus's lawyer withdrew the case in 6 days, but they didn't stop. Victoria showed up at the house, crying, fake tears that didn't reach her eyes. Uncle Rob, please. Emma needs stability. I need my inheritance to send her to private school. Dad would have wanted his granddaughter to have the best. Your father left a college fund for Emma, I said. $25,000. He made sure she'd be taken care of. That's not enough. Private school is $40,000 a year. Uncle Rob, be reasonable. You don't need this whole house. Just give us our share. Your share is what your father decided to leave you. $25,000. For Emma. Not for you. She turned cold. You're going to regret this. You've turned my children against their grandfather's memory. Marcus tried a different approach. He showed up with Emma, Victoria's daughter. She was 13. Sweet. Still innocent. Uncle Rob, he said. Emma wanted to see the house one more time. She has so many memories here with Grandpa. Emma didn't have many memories there. She'd visited maybe 5 times in 8 years, but I let them in. Emma walked around, touching things. Marcus followed her, pointing. Remember this painting, Emma? Grandpa promised this to your mom. And this watch collection? That's supposed to be ours. He was trying to make me feel guilty. Using a child as leverage, I sat Emma down at the kitchen table. Your grandpa loved you very much, I told her. He left you money for college. He wanted to make sure you had opportunities. I know, she said. Mom told me you took everything else. My heart broke a little. They were poisoning her against me, against her grandfather's wishes. Your grandpa made his own choices, I said gently. He chose to leave the house to me because I took care of him. That's not wrong. That's not mean. That's just what he decided. But Dad says you manipulated him. Do you believe that? She looked uncertain, 13 years old and caught between truth and what her parents wanted her to believe. Your grandpa was the smartest man I ever knew, I said. Right up until the end. He knew exactly what he was doing. And he loved you. Never doubt that. I don't know if it helped. But I tried. The legal battle dragged on for months. They filed motion after motion. Each one got rejected. Finally, 8 months after Thomas died, the judge ruled. The will was valid. The house was mine. The estate was mine. Emma's college fund was protected. Marcus and Victoria got nothing except the furniture Victoria had already taken and the humiliation of having their greed exposed in court documents that became public record. I did what Thomas asked me to do. I lived. I didn't sell the house to spite them. I sold it because Thomas was right. It was too big, too full of memories that hurt now. The rooms where I'd cared for him, the stairs I'd helped him climb, the bathroom where I'd installed safety bars. I sold it for $3.4 million. I bought a smaller place in Cambridge, walking distance to Harvard Square. 2 bedrooms, one for me, one for guests. A small garden where I could grow tomatoes like Thomas and I used to. The rest of the money I invested. Some of it went to increasing Emma's college fund. She'd have $100,000 when she turned 18. Enough for any school she wanted. I set it up so neither Marcus nor Victoria could touch it. Thomas would have liked that. I also endowed a scholarship at UMass Boston in Thomas's name for engineering students who wanted to teach, who wanted to give back, $20,000 a year, forever. The rest I kept, not because I needed it, because Thomas wanted me to be free, to not worry, to travel, to live the life I'd postponed for 8 years. I went to Japan. I spent 3 months there, Kyoto, Tokyo, Hiroshima. I visited temples and gardens and ate ramen in tiny shops where no one spoke English. I thought about Thomas every day, but I also thought about myself, about the life I still had ahead of me. When I came back, I started volunteering, teaching math to kids who struggled, the way I used to, the way Thomas taught engineering because he believed in giving back. I found purpose again, joy again. Marcus and Victoria, I hear about them occasionally. Marcus's startup failed. The Series B money ran out. He had to take a job at a company he used to look down on. Victoria got divorced. Her husband found out about the recordings, about what she'd done to her father. He couldn't stay married to someone like that. I don't take pleasure in their pain. I don't feel victorious. I just feel sad. Sad that they chose money over family. Sad that they never understood what they'd lost until it was too late. I see Emma sometimes. She reached out when she was 16, found me on Facebook. We met for coffee. She apologized for believing her parents. She'd found some of the old recordings, heard the truth. "I wish I'd known Grandpa better," she said. "He knew you loved him," I told her. That was enough. She's at MIT now, engineering, like her grandfather. She calls me sometimes, asks for advice, tells me about her classes. She's brilliant, kind, nothing like her parents. I go to Mount Auburn Cemetery every Sunday. I bring fresh flowers, white chrysanthemums, Thomas's favorite. I sit on the bench near his grave and play chess on my phone, the way we used to play together. "You were right," I tell him, "about everything, about the will, about the recordings, about fighting." The wind blows through the old oak trees, and I can almost hear his voice. That slight tremor it had at the end, but still firm, still certain. "I knew you could do it, little brother. I'm 64 years old. I have my health, I have my home, I have my freedom. I have Emma, who's become the granddaughter I never had. I have Thomas's memory, unsullied by bitterness. I'm not an uncle anymore. Not really. That relationship died when Marcus and Victoria chose inheritance over integrity. But I'm still a teacher. I'm still Thomas's brother. I'm still Robert Chen. And for the first time in 8 years, that's enough." This story taught me that sacrifice without recognition is still sacrifice. That love given freely is never wasted, even when it's not returned. That sometimes the people we love most become strangers we no longer recognize. And that real strength isn't about winning. It's about having the courage to honor the people who loved us, even when it costs us relationships with people who don't. Thomas's final gift wasn't the house or the money. It was permission. Permission to stop being the caretaker. Permission to put myself first. Permission to live without guilt. It's a reminder that it's never too late to start over. That peace doesn't come from wealth or validation or perfect families. It comes from knowing you honored your promises, from knowing you did right by the people who mattered, from knowing you refused to let bitterness poison the years you have left. What would you have done in my place? Would you have fought? Would you have given in to keep the peace? Would you have found the strength to honor your brother's wishes over your nephew's demands? Let me know in the comments below.